little pretty loba.
There was one, not yesterday, but the day before, where I looked like I looked something.
There's one that's just like your face close
yeah,
up.
I know. I think like I need to go back and just clean up some
Be a little-
thumbnails.
Be a little deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
You know how? So they say that it's difficult to save money because something about your future self, like you can't relate to your future self as much as. I fucking wish I could remember. This is obviously so unknown, but
I think this is Jerry Seinfeld.
I that's very young.
Okay, so this is more like marshmallow test, like.
Yeah, this is more from a sciencey source.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not to undermine Jerry's science.
I defer to him for all money-making decisions. He's probably not the worst person to take money from.
No,
Anyway.
I feel like he's the worst person, period.
Oh, okay.
No, he's not. I just am not a fan. We've already talked about this.
Yeah, we have.
That's why we started doing this as a platform to talk about my apathy and dislike for Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, it's like
With Barry Billy.
it's like comedians in cars getting coffee, or
Yeah.
like girls on couches.
Talking shit about Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. It's that's what the show's called.
Can we do that, and then can we also review couches?
Yeah, but where are we going to get different couches?
Sponsors.
Sure. I'm down with that. I'd be like, look, we've got like easily 3 or 4 viewers.
Sorry, you were saying about like your future self.
Oh, just that it's like difficult to care about them.
Right. You're like, she'll deal with it.
Yeah. And I have the same thing about like wanting to appear a certain way. I'm like, I don't care. And if I don't care, surely she won't. Then I look back at stuff and I'm like, what? I definitely at some point in my life, I'm going to be like, what the hell? Why did I allow myself to sit in pajamas and wear glasses and but like generally sit here looking like a dust bunny covered in lint.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I allow this? Well, because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I do this?
Right.
But I really can't connect to that right now. I'm fine though.
It's gonna be like Facebook photos of party.
One of the my drinking pictures are one of the reasons I don't want to open my Facebook profile. I'm sure it's fine.
It'll look the same.
Yeah.
It's all just like people making faces and occasionally making space.
I'm concerned about my outfits, which is funny because once again, it's not like I'm curating them. It's not like I've learned anything, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, though. I'm like, should I be wearing makeup for these? There's been a few days I'm like, whoa, I look rough.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of grateful for the low quality camera.
Why?
Because it makes apologies for you.
Does it?
I think it does, because like then you can't see in high definition how rough I look. There's just kind of blur of rough.
This sounds like
okay.
This sounds like a big pile of poop.
Really?
When do you look so rough that
I
would be
always-
caught on high definition? What are you talking about?
What do you mean? Like
All my worst moments have been caught on high definition. Like they started shooting in high def my first season at Sesame Street.
Yeah.
My first season there, Elmo's eyes were gray because they had some theory about how white was going to be for the new high definition cameras because they used to be white.
Yeah.
That was extremely confusing. But the point is not that. The point is there's many fuggliest of moments in my life are on high definition. So maybe that's why I don't give a crap about this. How bad could it be? I'm not wearing a T-Rex outfit.
It's been worse. Yeah.
So I feel like at least
I agree with that. I'm not like tied up somewhere or bleeding from the head. So.
are you're tied up in places?
Yeah, there's like this show I did called Grimm where I had to be tied up, and somewhere online there's like all these faces of me like with the gag in my mouth, and I'm like, and it's so ugly.
Whatever. I guess you always think other people's things are like kind of a big deal. You have a gag in your mouth. Clearly, there's something happening.
That's not good either. If I was like beautiful with a gag in my mouth, that wouldn't be a great thing either.
No one is. That's not normal.
Yeah. Shouldn't be doing that. Sometimes though, I'm like, oh, those like actresses are like, no, I'm from my left side. Like, they know what they're doing.
You think?
They're like, no, I'm not doing that because it'll look stupid.
You like people who refuse to do things.
I do. I have so much respect for them. It's like, if a director is like, how about you do it this way? And they're like, and then they just don't.
Yeah.
Love that.
I wish I did that more often. I'm very obedient.
In certain contexts.
Yeah. Most definitely in certain contexts. Where's my book? Just one of those times that I came and sat down without bothering to get it.
I almost brought it over. It's by the.
Yeah, I know where it is.
I don't know what to call it. It's by the beer. Beer for the slugs.
One can of beers.
I killed a spider too. It's a pretty scary spider.
I've seen so many Black Widows, including in my room.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
not multiple, one. Or the bathroom. Either my room.
Too. Why did I not hear you screaming your head off?
I don't know what it was that time. It's because she was so aggressive. I'm actually serious. I might have been making comments. Do you remember how angry she was?
In the bathroom?
No.
Oh, outside. Yes. There was a Black Widow outside, and yes, she was not going to die.
Yeah, that was obvious to me. And when you can read like obvious emotions from insects, it's kind of disturbing. So in general, it's not. I don't have like a thing with spiders, really.
Yeah, me neither.
So that's why I didn't scream.
Okay.
But she was just particularly like, I was like, I think she might take me down. Like, I don't know if we're equal to her.
Yeah. Like,
know?
I kind of felt like, yeah, she could get us.
Me too.
Before we got her.
Me too. So that's why that was terrifying.
That's me being in and out all day. Yeah, this one died much quicker.
You know what I don't get? When there's one fly in your house, how come they multiply?
Are they pregnant flies that get in your house?
I mean, what's the likelihood? But maybe it's high. I have a problem buying plants. It's possible that I bought 2 mulberry plants.
What kind of berries?
It might be that I bought a raspberry plant and a blackberry plant to go with the 2 blueberry plants.
But so bushes need to be like, those can get big, can't they?
We'll see.
Like, I wonder if you should stake out some of the hill for those.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily gonna put them on.
Okay. Yeah.
Where did you think I was going to put them, in the vegetable patch?
I have no idea. Have you planted the blueberries yet?
No, I know where I'm
Okay.
going to, but I'm waiting because I think I need to remove all of the bougainvillea roots before I actually put them
Okay.
No.
Near the house?
in. Oh yes,
Yeah.
I never know what you mean when you're talking about
I'm
the
like
back
right
of the
here.
house. Like, well,
Yeah.
like this, which is the front.
Well, it's like, so you go out and then you go that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just like creating a little acai restaurant out there.
It's not even for my acai bowls. It's more. It's for my nephew.
Actually, yeah, it's gonna be able to pick berries.
And he's so obsessed with buoys. Like that's all he ever wants. Back buoy. Still buoys him. Back buoys him. Buoys him. Yeah. Especially the blueberries. I mean, it might be that by the time he grows up a little bit, he'll be like, I hate berries. At which point,
Maybe. I like berries. It's pretty good. Did
I'll
you?
just have to. We don't have berries. They're kind of cold weather in the grand scheme of things. Maybe. Not that they were not, but it wasn't a good thing. Yeah, all the most amazing fruit that I grew up with, you don't get here, and that's one of my least favorite things about living here. Just the lack of a couple of key fruits. Key fruits.
Key fruits like the. What is it that's going up there?
Where? In front or in the back?
In the back. That's what I meant.
Chicory. I mean, that's the Hindi word for it. Mangoes.
I never see you eat a mango.
That's because these are rubbish.
Really?
Kind of.
Oh.
It's not the same. Also, I just can't face the disappointment of trying one. It's rubbish. What is that?
So some kind of bug.
Some kind of what?
Some kind of bug. It's not in your food.
It's not. There's a little baby moth. For some reason, I have an affinity for moths.
You like them?
There's a moth on the everyone, all the insects in Christendom.
Oh, there's one in the bathroom too.
Yeah, I like them.
In the flyer. Having fun.
So, what did we read yesterday?
We read not a lot. God, what happened? It was army stuff.
It's getting harder and harder to remember what happened, almost.
Yesterday wasn't a particularly great read. It was army stuff. Kutuzov was commander-in-chief. And
yes.
Prince Vasily was like, oh, yes. There was a man of great merit who
Can't
did not
imagine.
live up to his merit. Is there anything else? This is maybe the hardest one I've had tried to remember what happened.
Yeah, I literally can't remember anything.
There was like one random chapter about Lavrushka and Napoleon. About
that's
this
the
Cossack who like didn't care that he was talking to Napoleon, and then the French historian was like, but he did care, but he didn't.
I liked that chapter actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not enough to remember it
Mhm.
existing,
Mhm.
but Yeah, I don't know what else to put in the summary.
Yeah, I think it's just the war is continuing. Uh, Andrew was back at Bald Hills,
Oh, that's right.
and his family did leave. And there were all these soldiers there bathing in the pond. And Andrew was disgusted by it. And instead, he bathed in the barn by himself
Canon photo.
because he hates himself.
And he hates. Yeah. That is why. And chapter 8.
Mhm.
Ready?
Mhm.
Princess Mary was not in Moscow and out of danger, as Prince Andrew supposed. Plot twist!
I spoke too soon. After the return of, maybe she's like, I'm going on my pilgrimage. Like, she finally does it.
Jesus!
After the return of Alpatish from Smolensk, the old prince suddenly seemed to awake as from a dream. He ordered the militiamen to be called up from the villages and armed, and wrote a letter to the commander-in-chief informing him that he had resolved to remain at Bald Hills to the last extremity and to defend it, leaving to the commander-in-chief's discretion to make measures or not for the defense of Bald Hills, where one of Russia's oldest generals would be captured or killed. And he announced to his household that he would remain at Bald Hills.
But while himself remaining, he gave instructions for the departure of the princess and the Tsar with the little prince to Bogucharovo and thence to Moscow. Princess Mary, alarmed by her father's feverish and sleepless activity after his previous apathy, could not bring herself to leave him alone, and for the first time in her life ventured to disobey him. She refused to go away, and her father's fury broke over her in a terrible storm. He repeated every injustice he had ever inflicted on her, tried to convict her. What? Trying to convict her. I've never heard this usage. Trying to convict her. He told her she had worn him out, had caused his quarrel with his son, had harbored nasty suspicions of him, making it the object of her life to poison his existence. And he drove her from his study, telling her that if she did not go away, it was all the same to him. He declared that he did not wish to remember her existence, and warned her not to dare to let him see her. The fact that he did not, as she had feared, order her to be carried away by force only told her not to let him see her, but only told. Okay, my brain's broken.
No, this is a confusing sentence.
The fact that he did not, as she had feared, order her to be carried away by force, but only told her not to let him see her, cheered Princess Mary.
That's ugly.
She knew it was a proof that in the depth of his soul he was glad she was remaining at home and had not gone.
Who cares if it's in the depths?
She is, I was going to say spiritually impoverished, but.
And also, does she not realize she doesn't need to go on pilgrimage? She's living the dream.
I know.
Seriously.
This is the, yeah.
Yeah, all those gods folks, like they're comfy.
The
Compared to
mountaintop
her.
in this situation birthed Muhammad.
The morning after little Nicholas had left, the old prince donned his full uniform and prepared to visit the commander-in-chief. His caleche was already at the door. Princess Mary saw him walk out of the house in his uniform, wearing all his orders, and go down the garden to review his armed peasants and domestic serfs. She sat by the window listening to his voice, which reached her from the garden. Suddenly, several men came running up the avenue with frightened faces.
Princess Mary ran out to the porch. No, I think I'm broken today. Down the flower-bordered path and into the avenue, a large crowd of militiamen and domestics were moving toward her, and in their midst several men were supporting by the armpits and dragging along a little old man in a uniform and decorations. She ran up to him, and in the play of the sunlight that fell in small round spots through the shade of the lime tree avenue, could not be sure what change there was in his face. All she could see was that his former stern and determined expression had altered to one of timidity and submission. On seeing his daughter, he moved his helpless lips and made a hoarse sound. It was impossible to make out what he wanted. He was lifted up, carried to his study, and laid on the very couch he had so feared of late.
The doctor, who was fetched that same night, bled him, and said that the prince had had a seizure, paralyzing his right side. He's had a stroke.
It was becoming more and more dangerous to remain at Bald Hills, and the next day they moved the prince to Bogucharovo, the doctor accompanying him.
By the time they reached Bogucharovo, Sal and the little prince had already left for Moscow.
For 3 weeks, the old prince lay stricken by paralysis in the new house Prince Andrew had built in Bogucharovo, ever in the same state. I thought that house was not that far from them.
I don't
Country
know.
house.
I don't know what the distance is here.
Ever in the same state,
I
getting
mean,
neither
like he would be in danger there too.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like enough
Yeah,
progress.
I'm not sure.
Getting neither better nor worse. He was unconscious and lay like a distorted corpse. He muttered unceasingly, his eyebrows and lips twitching, and it was impossible to tell whether he understood what was going on around him or not. One thing was certain, that he was suffering and wished to say something, but what it was, no one could tell. It might be some caprice of a sick and half-crazy man, or it might relate to public affairs, or possibly to family concerns.
The doctor said this restlessness did not mean anything. It was due to physical causes. But Princess Mary thought he wished to tell her something, and the fact that her presence always increased his restlessness confirmed her opinion. He probably just wants to be like, "This is your fault."
Fuck yeah!
What do you want to say, Papa? What do you want to say about it?
That's probably gonna happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I don't even think this is a joke.
He was evidently suffering both physically and mentally. There was no hope of recovery. It was impossible for him to travel. It would not do to let him die on the road. Would it not be better if the end did come? The very end, Princess Mary sometimes thought. Yeah, you are. Sometimes I think, wouldn't it be better if
Would
you
it?
just smothered him with a pillow?
Can't think why she hasn't taken it upon herself.
Night and day, hardly sleeping at all, she watched him die. Terrible to say, often watched him not with hope of finding signs of improvement, but wishing to find symptoms of the approach of the end.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible to say. Strange as it was for her to acknowledge this feeling in herself, yet there it was. And what seemed still more terrible to her was that since her father's illness began, perhaps even sooner, when she stayed with him expecting something to happen, all the personal desires and hopes that had been forgotten or sleeping within her had awakened. Thoughts that had not entered her mind for years, thoughts of a life free from the fear of her father, and even the possibility of love and of family happiness floated continually in her imagination like temptations of the devil.
They're not temptations.
No, they floated like temptations.
Oh,
like
yeah.
along with
I'm
the
familiar with
temptations.
those. I've definitely had those.
I think that's what she's saying. They have the same buoyancy as. Yes, they have the same buoyancy as temptations of the devil.
Oh, okay.
Just the bouquet is similar.
Okay.
My dreams and the devil. Thrust them aside as she would, questions continually recurred to her as to how she would order her life now after that. These were temptations of the devil. Okay.
So they're like.
So there went that theory.
I mean, they're similar to, and they are.
And also, the reason you were seeing the similarity that you were noticing before. That's good. Oh my God.
That's how the devil gets you.
Yes.
Don't you know?
That is how the
That devil wants you to like be happy and have a family.
Yeah. He wants you to think that you have hopes and dreams. He wants you to have no. Is that how it works? Okay. Good morning, Nithya. Today I've been useless. I would just like to announce to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today was a quarantine day. It kind of got to me. Yeah, there are so many days that I'm useless.
You're like, why would I leave that?
I don't evaluate whether or not to leave.
Oh, okay.
No, it's that I didn't have any like work for my sister today,
Okay.
and I don't know. I felt very useless. Probably it's the donuts.
Or that increased the likelihood of donuts. Or called for the donuts.
I did do some exercises, but it's difficult to
Because those
say
came
what
around like,
exercises. Well, that's because I was like trying to anticipate.
oh,
I was like, I don't want the donuts, but I better have them.
they better be there. Yeah. I still want to say that was that like around 3:00?
Probably.
Yeah.
What's the?
So I guess I'm just saying like, it's not just the donuts.
You mean because I was awake
There was a
before
day,
3?
yeah.
I woke up at 9.
I also don't think you're ever useless because I hear you every morning on the phone to your nephew,
Screeching.
doing all kinds of voices, like just entertaining the shit out of him.
Really?
So
Is
if
it
you
really
do,
loud?
she also like does opera. For
Oh,
him,
that
unless
was
that was
today.
just for yourself.
No, that was today.
It's cute.
It's because he freaks out.
Yeah.
You see that video, right? Where he's just
Yeah.
like running
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a crazy person. But now he's like, and you see the magic flute. The magic flute.
So cultured.
You know, it's just ridiculous. And you see the flute. Magic flute. But then his version of it is like,
He sang opera? Oh,
that's his opera. I think he is really amused by sounds that he like can't come close to replicating.
Mm.
Like I was also trying to do an elephant. Today was a loud day. I was also trying to do an elephant. How would you do an elephant? This is what I ended up doing. No.
Oh, I've never seen something like that.
I mean, I'm just making shit up.
Oh.
Because I was like, there has to be some kind of like, no!
Yeah.
But there also has to be some kind of like trumpety, like
I
horn
feel like
sound.
we tried to do this.
Really?
Or was I doing this with someone else? Where it's like, you have to do.
Oh, he would love that. Oh my god, he would love that.
That's really good. Yeah, and I bet he could do that really well.
When I was doing this thing, he was like cracking up, and then he
Aww.
just would go like. So I think partly it's the ones that he just like can't do that he's like it's happening with your face.
Yeah.
That's true. I do. I don't know if that's useful. I think it's useful to them.
I think that's useful. And firstly, I think that's useful to him. I'm sure he's like, yes, please, I will have more of that. And yeah, it's probably useful to them.
When someone moves the phone, he's like, "Don't take my bail." People have to be like, "It's not your bail. It's not an it person." She's not. There have been many conversations where they're like, "I would like to talk to my sister. Okay, I would like. You had your turn, and now, like, I don't know. It's probably because I do dumb shit that he like. It's like the television and then someone turning the TV over. And you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I was fucking watching that.
I mean, probably some of that, and also like a human being that he likes to have.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he just thinks. I think he knows you're live. You know?
He does.
Yeah.
He does. And I don't think he talks to videos of me because he's only just started seeing them. He's not like, why isn't she paying attention to me? So I think that there are certain cues that. I mean, what's also interesting is that like I'm not making eye contact with him in FaceTime, right? Because I'm looking at his face on my screen. But so it's kind of like I'm going like, hi, but he knows when I'm looking at him, even though I'm not looking like that at him.
Right.
So
That whole thing is so confusing.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess we just adjust. What else is going on?
Yeah. Which as an adult, like I'm okay with it, but sometimes I wonder, like, does he think I'm not looking at him?
Yeah.
He doesn't. because he's very clear on emotional reactions. Like he knows when I'm like, I still was useless. I trained my dad. All of this was for my dad.
This is very useful. And you gardened. I saw you out there.
Oh
I
yeah!
saw you.
I was digging the holes.
She dug a good hole. You're just like a random.
I just dug a
You know, when
hole.
you're like a kid, you just like dig holes for no reason.
No,
It'd be great
but
if that's what you were doing. You're just like, I'm gonna dig a hole today.
I've done it. It's deep. No, because of my addiction. I was like, one of the other things I saw on the Fig website was this like mixed kale thing. So I think they have like several different types of kale seeds in one thing. So it's like a fucking salad. And that was thrilling to me. So I got
So smart to grow your own kale.
yeah, except then you have to eat it.
And you do.
I don't know what it is with me and not being able to eat the stuff that I grow.
You've been eating the strawberries though.
Ish. A lot of them have gone to the ruins. I take joy in the exact opposite path that most people do. My dad's like, I love strawberries, but I just kind of wish they were already there. Like the eating it part is the best part. And for me, like I would like to grow them, but just never eat them. I just want to like marvel at them. I don't
Right.
know.
Your process, not result oriented. I think it's more exciting to grow them, personally.
Right?
Because then once you eat it, it's gone. You're like, all of that for this little.
It's really unbelievable how much goes into every little. Also, like how much you treasure blueberries when they're on a bush versus like
Oh my god, I remember that. Like, there was one house we lived in. I remember the day we moved, we discovered there was a blackberry bush in the backyard, and it was like, we cannot move now.
oh my you shouldn't have.
No. And it's so exciting when you discover a black, especially in your own yard, and you're like, and then eating it is like, it's so sweet and amazing.
It's like you gave birth to it yourself.
Yeah, really, when all you did was
Be
discover
there.
it. Yeah.
I don't know what page I'm on.
Oh, right. So there's the devil.
Oh right.
Wait. These were temptations of the devil and Princess Mary.
She knew here, yeah.
Yeah.
She knew that the sole weapon against him was prayer, and she tried to pray. She assumed an attitude of prayer. She looked at the icons, repeated the words of a prayer, but she could not pray. Oh my god, she's falling apart. She felt that a different world had now taken possession of her. The life of a world of strenuous and free activity, quite opposed to the spiritual work in which till now she had been confined, and in which her greatest comfort had been prayer. She could not pray, could not weep, and worldly cares took possession of her.
It was becoming dangerous to remain in Bogocharovo. News of the approach of the French came from all sides. And in one village, 10 miles from Bogocharovo, a homestead had been looted by French marauders.
The doctor insisted on the necessity of moving the prince. The provincial marshal of the nobility sent an official to Princess Mary to persuade her to get away as quickly as possible, and the head of the rural police, having come to Bogucharovo, urged the same thing, saying that the French were only some 25 miles away, that French proclamations were circulating in the villages, and that if the princess did not take her father away before the 15th, he could not answer for the consequences.
The princess decided to leave on the 15th. The cares of preparation and giving orders, for which everyone came to her, occupied her all day. She spent the night of the 14th, as usual, without undressing, in the room next to the one where the prince lay. Several times, waking up, she heard his groans and muttering, the creak of his bed, and the steps of Tikhon and the doctors when they turned him over. Several times she listened at the door, and it seemed to her that his mutterings were louder than usual and that they turned him over oftener. Are they just turning him
Like a piece of fish.
over? Like a right, like on the grill.
Like a fillet.
Is it like so he doesn't get bed sores? What are bed sores?
Don't
Okay,
even
let's not go there.
think about it.
Okay.
Because whatever they may or may not be, they are assuredly the most horrendous concept. I can't think of.
Okay. Never mind. They're turning him over.
I gave myself a big old oil bath. I put oil in my hair and oil everywhere. These are all things that I tried to do to make myself feel like I was doing something. It didn't work.
What do you think? That sounds amazing. Was it nice at least?
Sure. I really want this hair mask that I have so many things that I clearly need to get off my chest because I keep interrupting the reading.
Yeah, Princess Mary. But
But
what's the hair mask? Okay.
the hair mask is from Lush, and it's jasmine and henna, and I was given a sample in some context and used it like a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And particularly when you can't get haircuts. At some point your hair kind of starts to feel like straw. You know, like normally that's time to get a haircut. So yeah. Also, I think I've just been doing some like retail therapy.
Oh, I definitely think you're not the only one.
I ordered like just 9 things from Sage. It was actually under $100.
Okay, that's not bad.
So, which is for them and for that, like, I think I did okay.
Did you get some skin?
I don't know. No, I didn't
What did
because
you
I was
do?
like, I can't go into this whole thing of skincare.
I think Sage is actually an excellent thing to be buying right now.
Sort of. Part of me was like, this is like self-care. I got some like sleepy balm to put on the soles of your feet. I'm gonna buy this shit. But a pine and eucalyptus soap-filled wash pad. So this is like a jute thing that you slip on your hand, and it's got soap inside it. So it's like, this is fucking genius, and I can't believe it's taken so long.
Okay.
So it's literally just like a mitten, a like coarse cotton thing
Yeah.
with soap inside.
But there's soap inside.
Yes. Somebody said it lasts like a month. I'm definitely interested in at least trying.
Is it like in the cloth, or is there a secret compartment for soap?
I think there's a compartment.
And so you could like replace the soap. Or do you have to
Theoretically,
get a new glove?
but they're biodegradable, so you can just throw them out. But I think you might have to get a new one only because I thought about this. It probably would have to be no, because you could probably put like a liquid soap in it if you're willing to do that every time you shower. But I don't think you could put like any type of bar soap in the pocket because I don't know how much it would lather up through fabric. Bar soap. I feel like you kind of have to get bar soap frictioning a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not important what I did and didn't do.
You apparently think this is the most genius thing that's ever been.
I don't know
So
why.
that's important.
I guess. And then I cashed in a thing from the legging company that I had. I had a return credit, so I didn't actually spend any extra money, but I'm getting a pair of fucking leggings. Why do I need leggings? I don't know. They have a unbelievably crafty business plan. The designs, when they're gone, they're gone. They only do them one time.
What company is this?
Niamaso. So it completely fucks with your mind because there's this feeling like if I don't order it, it might be
go.
it might be gone. So there are some things that like I guess people don't buy and then they end up going on sale, but you can't wait for things to go on sale because a lot of them just sell out and then they never come back.
Yeah, I like that actually.
It's really smart. I mean, it's a lot of fucking work clearly because you're reinventing the wheel every single time, like in a major way. But if you're a legging company, then you're probably not doing that much innovation when it comes to the fabrics or the fit, or you know what I mean? Like there are so many things that
Yeah,
are
so
neutral.
that's the only like innovation you can do. I always think about that. I'm like, I think they figured out leggings. I think at this point they've kind of got the designs that work. So yeah, that's like the only place to go.
But yeah, I think the business model is pretty genius. Because one of the reasons I bought these leggings, even though I don't so much need them, is because another pair that I have been eyeing like mad is gone. And I was like, see?
It's so opposite. For some random reason, last night I used to buy these T-shirts. This was like first time I ever like bought anything online. There was this company called Threadless.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like at the time, I just remember being like 12 years old or something. I don't even know how old I was, and like it blew my mind. These T-shirts were like, oh, like I don't know why I thought they were the greatest thing ever.
Interesting.
Because they were like artistic or funny, and then you got to wear them, and no one else knew about this website. So it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have like all these cool T-shirts, and no one else is gonna have them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the website last night because I was like, maybe I should order some T-shirts. And what I think is insane, there are some designs on there
That have been there since then?
Yes. And I'm like, has this company just never, like, obviously there's new stuff too, but they still have designs from like a decade ago. More than a decade.
I mean, they must be doing that because they're selling.
I guess like they're popular, and so they just, that is still a long time to have the same design.
That's very, very long.
Yeah.
That's very long. Because even like places like Banana Republic don't have like the same dress, the same like sheath dress, that black one.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have those for like years at a time.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And that is the exact opposite.
That's, yeah. So you can do both things.
I also ordered for my family a like urban homesteader kit, which includes like a little thing, several little like cilantro and mint and like 3 little herb things and a fucking tomato plant that you can grow indoors and a couple of boxes that you grow mushrooms out of. They're so overpriced, but nowhere else has something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like a box with like mud and shit, and you I think maybe spray it, but then like mushrooms grow out the side. Isn't that so exciting?
Actually, yeah. What are mushrooms? Just like regular white? What are we talking?
I'm
Are we
about
getting
to
like
show you.
fancy with like cordyceps?
They have like a limited kind, but I think they have at least 3 different kinds.
That's what my facial mushrooms. What kind of mushroom?
You probably can, dude.
I mean, I didn't really know you could grow your own.
Well,
Because there are fungus. There are people who think that like mushrooms are really closely related to humans.
are really closely related to humans.
Yeah, it has to do with like the fact that they're not plants, so they're alive in a different way that is very similar to humans. You know, oh, it's literally like a cardboard box.
It's like a fucking box.
Oh, that's not that expensive.
No, I said it was overpriced.
What kind of mushrooms are you talking? No, these are regular though. These aren't like.
They're not like button mushrooms. They're not like
Mystery edition. Yeah. Goodness, this is so cool. How did you find this?
you found me. And I'm not saying that to be mysterious. Like this is the shit that gets marketed to me on Instagram because it knows me and what I like.
Oyster mushrooms. Do you like oyster mushrooms?
I do. If they, I do
If
now.
I grew them myself. Yeah.
How isn't that so exciting?
That's cool.
Imagine like opening a box and then like a
There's
week
mushrooms.
later,
Yeah.
you're like, where are they even coming from? You guys,
Mushrooms. I feel like I haven't eaten a mushroom in like 6 months.
I know, me too. I feel like there's lots of things I haven't eaten in 6 months. So for them to do like a little gardening thing indoors.
So cute. And then they can have they can have mushrooms. He likes mushrooms.
He fucking loves mushrooms. That's part of the whole thing. Mushroom. Yeah.
Or I want
I've almost got something like this for you before.
mushrooms.
No, you know what I almost got from
Yeah.
from a similar site? I almost got you this. What am I telling you? Where were we?
Remember when I was really into mushrooms? Whatever.
Woo!
I saved it. And I don't mean like mushrooms like that. I
When
mean,
were you into mushrooms?
like you remember when I was taking like all my mushroom powders?
Oh, that kind of mushrooms.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, they're supposed to be great for you.
And then you read something else and you were like, no, it's cannibalism.
Yeah, I was like, I'm vegan. I
These
can't.
are my cousins.
You get why. I just don't think I actually felt anything from them. If I was being totally honest,
That's a good reason to stop taking something.
probably, especially if it's like $80
$1
from
million.
Moon Juice. Yeah,
Fuck moon juice.
seriously.
You know
man.
what? Fuck moon juice.
Yeah, $10 for a little juice. No.
Is it even 10? I don't. I think it's
like
more.
$10.80.
I think it's more.
Really?
I fucking hate them. I'm pretty sure they're just putting like sawdust in packets.
I'm calling it like sense.
This is so good for your sex dust.
I mean, genius. Whoever invented
God,
it,
they're well marketed.
they really are.
I'm trying to think of a non-vulgar analogy for what happened between me and moon juice. Like, I just let them have it. I was like, take me and my foot.
Oh yeah. I forgot you got all those things. Did you ever?
I have two
Did you
things.
take all the things?
I have
You
two
got like
things.
some powders and then.
I got the packets of powders
Yeah.
because I wanted to try the different powders. This was before I realized it was like eating dirt. And which is a thing that you don't know until it's there.
Sure.
And then I got a thing of like Super U capsules, but they were so expensive that I never wanted to take them.
Oh my god. Great.
I basically was like, wait a minute, this wouldn't be good if I suddenly was like loved them because then I'm on.
Then you're hooked.
Yeah, I might as well be a fucking. It's like becoming a cokehead. It's like so. There's whole. You're just like hemorrhaging this other expense all of a sudden.
Yeah, I got their like.
You got
Their
something to do with mushrooms. didn't
blue spirulina like protein powder, adaptogen protein powder.
you?
That I do have to say I liked just because adaptogen. I always say adaptogen, whatever.
No one's ever gonna know this.
Adaptogen. I liked it because I dig the earthiness sometimes.
Because you're like,
I'm like,
"Ah, this
yeah,
is
it
good
tastes
for
like
me."
mud, therefore it's great.
Right.
And it made my shakes blue, so I was like, I like this.
Oh, that's cool.
Like when just drinking a blue thing, you feel cool.
I know, but you can just get spirulina.
I think that's all it was. It had blue spirulina.
Yeah.
It's like pea protein and blue spirulina, and then they're like $60, please, or whatever it is.
I mean, spirulina's not cheap, but I remember the last time I made those matcha protein bars. That's why I had a fucking bushel of Jackie nuts. I had like this many Jackie nuts and I had no idea why. Because
nuts or cashews.
because I was using them for that, and that's also where all the coconut oil went.
Ah, okay.
Because I was
Okay.
making like batches of those things.
Yeah, those are.
Oh, they're fucking awesome. Anyway, I made them with spirulina the last time in the matcha with the everything, and they were like black and white. It was kind of cool.
Ooh. This is
Why you
expensive.
take it?
It's expensive.
I have some.
You take it? In your smoothies? In your acai bowls?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, but I haven't made it. Habit.
Okay,
I have no more confessions.
it's all right. If they keep coming up, it's fine.
I was very excited about a lot of this stuff. It's like I'm
Honestly.
genuinely
Like, when
pretty.
does it come?
I know, I don't know when they're gonna get their mushrooms. I have to get the mushroom thing.
I like that you bought things for your family because that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking a lot lately how like the way you make yourself feel better is you do something nice for other people. So I'm like, I should be buying things. I should be putting my shopping desire to good use.
I don't feel bad about it. I feel like it was a little dumb, but
I mean, it depends. Like his reaction when there's mushrooms.
you know what's crazy? Because he's 2, he's never gonna remember any of this. He's never gonna remember any of this. And I can't believe it's taken me this long to realize and think, like, isn't that interesting? Because to me, being with him and wanting to show him new things is such a strong and meaningful urge that um, I realize it's completely a one-way thing, because it's not like he's even going to be like, hey, remember when we blah 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 later? He's not.
Oh, like you're not gonna get to have.
Like, we don't get anything for this. It's just like one-way obsessive love. I mean, like, I assume
Yes,
that
but you get the
we
love
have a
back,
yes.
and you do see it like take hold. Like you see him, like whatever the growing the strawberries, you're growing a niche on.
Yeah, which is why, like, it's amazing how much, like, when we went to the zoo, it was the only time I didn't have a fit at a zoo. And he was seeing all these like things for the first time, and I was like so excited. Um, and I'm not really sure why. It just feels like such a big deal, even though, yeah, no one's gonna remember. And it also made me feel really sad that, like, I have another confession clearly.
Yeah.
That this is probably how my sister and I were. Like, we were probably like given this much.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad to think that, like, I ever criticized anything they ever did. I know it's not like binary and not so simple, but part of me is like, imagine like imagine Ishan being like, "You're such a bad aunt," and you're like, I can't even. That would be crazy, and it makes me feel really bad about my interactions with my aunts, because if they like loved me even a quarter of the amount, then it probably like, I don't know. I guess I like realized that maybe I mattered to them in a way that I couldn't have understood.
You should call them.
Aditi has actually, like, she organized a family, like, for that type of family Zoom call. It's at 6 a.m. for me.
I already have one.
Yeah. There's gonna be others, I think. But I mean, and this is as an aunt, like, I can't imagine obviously how much things change if you have a kid. But suddenly, but yeah, I if this is how much, I don't know if they were obsessed with. I know that my dad's younger sister was obsessed with Aditi like this, and was just like, everything about her was just perfect, and she just couldn't handle it. And it's to the point where I am getting accidentally called Bippy by my mother, mostly by my mother, accidentally.
Because it's so similar.
And the only conceivable reason,
Yeah.
because there's no increased interaction. She lives in a like it's not been a thing that has happened my whole life. Like we are similar in several ways and maybe like look slightly similar as well.
Yeah.
But there's no real reason my mom should suddenly be accidentally calling me her.
Right.
And I think maybe it's because of that.
Whoa.
Because she's reminded of how
Yeah.
Bippy my aunt was with Aditi.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Okay, I'm done talking.
I don't know if I ever had that.
Had what?
I don't know if any aunt was like crazy about me. But maybe I used to. So I have like this aunt who's like so good about. This is like where I'm sure you're like, oh, okay, that's like pretty normal. But every birthday, there's a card.
Right. Well, that's nice.
There's a card, there's a check, there's like a gift, there's something. Every single birthday, like that consistent. And I always growing up felt like so awkward and kind of ashamed about it.
Because
it was like, why is she giving us so much? Like I never knew how to repay her. And I also knew like she paid for certain things. Like she paid sometimes for us to do like camp over the summer. Or I didn't even like know how much she paid for it.
Did she have kids?
She never had kids. Yeah. And I always like felt kind of guilty. And now I'm like, oh, maybe she just was excited to be an aunt.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm like doing a whole berry patch for the off chance that he still likes berries when he next comes to visit from across the like.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody feels like this, but
Probably not everyone does, but probably a lot do.
right.
Like
It's always a sign to me that like, oh, someone definitely is then. Like I can't be the only one, obviously. And that is pretty special to me. But I remember like early on when I was like couldn't believe how over the moon how obsessed I was about him. I'd be like, do you have nephews or nieces? To people, they'd be like, yeah, I have 3 in Denver and 4 in. I'd be like, oh, like they're just.
I'm sure like after a certain threshold you're like
I don't know.
I'm sure.
Maybe if you're
If
used
you
to
have
big
like
families.
16, yeah. If there's like a lot of family members and you're like, okay, there's nothing, like you can't keep being like, like that's too much.
I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I can just see people. I can see someone getting used to it, or even like losing track. You know.
Right.
You know, there's like.
I mean, that's how I feel about like. So my grandfather is turning 100 next month. It's really sad that we can't be there. That was a thing that was hoped for. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Can have like an online party. I know it's not.
Yeah, I don't know how much because they're in a home, their access to like video has been limited, so it's like kind of stressful on a few different fronts.
Okay.
But meanwhile, Mary is breaking free.
Yeah, things are looking good.
The steps have taken and the doctor when they turn him over what are bed sores.
Thank you. Yes. Several times she listened at the door, and it seemed to her that his mutterings were louder than usual and that they turned him over oftener. She could not sleep, and several times went to the door and listened, wishing to enter but not deciding to do so. Though he did not speak, Princess Mary saw and knew how unpleasant every sign of anxiety on his account was to him. She had noticed with what dissatisfaction he turned from the look she sometimes involuntarily fixed on him. She knew that her going in during the night at an unusual hour would irritate him.
I don't. Whose anxiety?
Is the prince?
Sign of anxiety on his account was to him?
Princess knew how every sign. I think her anxiety. Sorry, her anxiety makes him angry.
But never had she felt so grieved for him or so much afraid of losing him. She recalled all her life with him, and in every word and act of his found an expression of his love for her. Occasionally, amid these, she needs Al-Anon so badly. Occasionally, amid these memories, temptations of the devil would surge into her imagination, thoughts of how things would be after his death and how her new liberated life would be ordered, but she drove these thoughts away with disgust. Toward morning, he became quiet and she fell asleep.
She woke late. That sincerity which often comes with waking showed her clearly what chiefly concerned her about her father's illness. On waking, she listened to what was going on behind the door and, hearing him groan, said to herself with a sigh that things were still the same.
But what could have happened? What did I want? I want his death, she cried with a feeling of loathing for herself.
She watched, dressed, said her prayers, and went out to the porch. In front of it stood carriages without horses, and things were being packed into the vehicles.
It was a warm, grey morning. Princess Mary stopped at the porch, still horrified by her spiritual baseness, and trying to arrange her thoughts before going to her father. The doctor came downstairs and went out to her.
He's a little better today, said he. I was looking for you. One can make out something of what he is saying. His head is clearer. Come in. He's asking for you.
Princess Mary's heart beat so violently at this news that she grew pale and leaned against the wall to keep from falling. To see him, to talk to him, feel his eyes on her now that her whole soul was overflowing with those dreadful, wicked temptations was a torment of joy and terror.
Come, said the doctor.
Princess Mary entered her father's room and went up to his bed. He was lying on his back, propped up high, and with small bony hands with thin, knotted purple veins were lying on the quilt, and his left eye gazed straight before him. His right eye was awry, and his brows and lips motionless. He seemed altogether so thin, small, and pathetic. His face seemed to have shriveled or melted. His features had grown smaller. Princess Mary went up and kissed his hand. His left hand pressed hers so that she understood that he had long been waiting for her to come. He twitched her hand, and his brows and lips quivered angrily. She looked at him in dismay, trying to guess what he wanted of her. When she changed her position so that his left eye could see her face, he calmed down, not taking his eyes off her for some seconds. Then his lips and tongue moved, sounds came, and he began to speak, gazing timidly and imploringly at her, evidently afraid that she might not understand. Straining all her faculties, Princess Mary looked at him. The comic efforts with which he moved his tongue made her drop her eyes and with difficulty repress the sobs that rose to her throat. He said something, repeating the same words several times. She could not understand them, but tried to guess what he was saying, and inquiringly repeated the words he uttered. Eight. He repeated several times. It was quite impossible to understand these sounds. The doctor thought he had guessed them and inquiringly repeated, Mary, are you afraid? The prince shook his head, again repeating the same sounds. My mind aches? Questioned Princess Mary. He made a mumbling sound in confirmation of this, took her hand, and began pressing it to different parts of his breast as if trying to find the right place for it. Always thoughts about you, thoughts, he then uttered much more clearly than he had done before, now that he was sure of being understood. Princess Mary pressed her head against his hand, trying to hide her sobs and tears. He moved his hand over her hair. I have been calling you all night, he brought out. If only I had known, she said through her tears. I was afraid to come in. He pressed her hand. Weren't you asleep? No, I did not sleep, said Princess Mary, shaking her head. Unconsciously imitating her father, she now tried to express herself as he did.
as much as possible by signs, and her tongue too seemed to move with difficulty.
Dear one, dearest. Princess Mary could not quite make out what he had said, but from his look it was clear that he had uttered a tender, caressing word such as he had never used to her before. Why didn't you come in?
I was wishing for his death, thought Princess Mary.
He was silent a while.
Thank you, dear daughter dear, for all. Forgive. Thank you. Forgive. Thank you. And tears began to flow from his eyes. Call Andrew, he said suddenly, and a childish, timid expression of doubt showed itself on his face as he spoke.
He himself seemed aware that his demand was meaningless, so at least it seemed to Princess Mary.
I have a letter from him, she replied.
He glanced at her with timid surprise.
Where is he?
He's with the army father at Smolensk.
He closed his eyes and remained silent a long time. Then, as if in answer to his doubts and to confirm the fact that now he understood and remembered everything, he nodded his head and reopened his eyes.
Yes, he said softly and distinctly, Russia has perished. They've destroyed her.
And he began to sob, and again tears flowed from his eyes. Princess Mary could no longer restrain herself and wept while she gazed at his face.
Again he closed his eyes. His sobs ceased. He pointed to his eyes, and Tikhon, understanding him, wiped away the tears.
Then he again opened his eyes and said something none of them could understand for a long time, till at least Tikhon understood and repeated it. Princess Mary had sought the meaning of his words in the mood in which he had just been speaking. She thought he was speaking of Russia, or Prince Andrew, or herself, or his grandson, or of his own death, and so she could not guess his words.
Put on your white dress. I like it, was what he said.
I like it. Having understood this, Princess Mary sobbed still louder, and the doctor, taking her arm, led her out to the veranda, soothing her and trying to persuade her to prepare for her journey. When she had left the room, the prince again began speaking about his son, about the war, and about the emperor, angrily twitching his brows and raising his hoarse voice, and then he had a second and final stroke.
Princess Mary stayed on the veranda. The day had cleared. It was hot and sunny. She could understand nothing, think of nothing, and feel nothing, except passionate love for her father, love such as she thought she had never felt till that moment. She ran out sobbing into the garden and as far as the pond, along the avenues of young lime trees Prince Andrew had planted.
Yes, I wished for his death. Yes, I wanted it to end quicker. I wished to be at peace. And what will become of me? What use will peace be when he is no longer here? Princess Mary murmured. Princess Mary murmured.
Murray Mehmed.
Pacing the garden with hurried steps and pressing her hands to her bosom, which heaved with convulsive sobs.
When she had completed the tour of the garden. Tour is a very funny word to use for what's going on.
Just like, oh.
It's like, no one cry over here! When she had completed the tour of the garden, which brought her again to the house, she saw Mademoiselle Bouvienne, who had remained at Bogucharovo and did not wish to leave it, coming toward her with a stranger. This was the marshal of the nobility of the district, who had come personally to point out to the princess the necessity for her prompt departure. Princess, are they still at home?
They're at Bogucharovo.
Okay. I don't know what this remained and not. Okay. Princess Mary listened without understanding him. She led him to the house, offered him lunch, and sat down with him. Then, excusing herself, she went to the door of the old prince's room. The doctor came out with an agitated face and said she could not enter.
Go away, princess. Go away. Go away.
She returned to the garden and sat down on the grass at the foot of the slope by the pond where no one could see her. She did not know how long she had been there when she was aroused by the sound of a woman's footsteps running along the path. She rose and saw Dunyasha, her maid, who was evidently looking for her and who stopped suddenly, as if in alarm on seeing her mistress.
Please come, princess. The prince, said Dunyasha in a breaking voice.
Immediately, I'm coming, replied the princess hurriedly, not giving Dunyasha time to finish what she was saying, and trying to avoid seeing the girl, she ran toward the house.
Princess, it's God's will. You must be prepared for everything, said the marshal, meeting her at the house door.
Leave me alone. I thought he was somebody.
Huh?
I thought he had already died.
No, he just had a final stroke.
Well, that's a very confusing way to put things. His last and final.
His final stroke. That's the last one I'll have, I think. No more for you.
Let me alone! It's not true! She cried angrily to him.
The doctor tried to stop her. She pushed him aside and ran to her father's door. Why are these people with frightened faces stopping me? I don't want any of them. And what are they doing here? She thought. She opened the door, and the bright daylight in that previously darkened room startled her. In the room were her nurse and other women. They all drew back from the bed, making way for her. He was still lying on the bed as before, but the stern expression of his quiet face made Princess Mary stop short on the threshold.
No, he's not dead. It's impossible, she told herself and approached him. And repressing the terror that seized her, she pressed her lips to his cheek, but she stepped back immediately. All the force of the tenderness she had been feeling for him vanished instantly and was replaced by a feeling of horror at what lay there before her. No, he is no more. He is not. But here, where he was, is something unfamiliar and hostile, some dreadful, terrifying, and repellent mystery. And hiding her face in her hands, Princess Mary sank into the arms of the doctor who held her up.
In the presence of Tickon and the doctor, the woman washed what had been the prince, tied his head up with a handkerchief that the mouth should not stiffen while open, and with another handkerchief tied together the legs that were already spreading apart. Then they dressed him in uniform with his decorations and placed his shriveled little body on a table. Heaven only knows who arranged all this and when, but it all got done as if of its own accord. Toward night, candles were burning round his coffin. A pall was spread over it. The floor was strewn with sprays of juniper. A printed band was tucked in under his shriveled head, and in a corner of the room sat a chanter reading the Psalms.
Just as horses shy and snort and gather about a dead horse, so the inmates of the house and strangers crowded into the drawing room round the coffin, the marshal, the village elder, peasant women, and all with fixed and frightened eyes, crossing themselves, bowed and kissed the prince's cold and stiffened hand. I saw my grandmother when she was dead in the living room. And people came in much similar fashion.
What were you?
It was before school, so maybe 7 at the oldest. Do you remember?
Yeah, let's do one more. Chapter 9. Until Prince Andrew settled in Bogocharovo, its owners had always been absentees, and its peasants were of quite a different character from those of Bald Hills. They differed from them in speech, dress, and disposition. They were called steppe peasants. The old prince used to approve of them for their endurance at work when they came to Bald Hills to help with the harvest or to dig ponds and ditches, but he disliked them for their boorishness.
Prince Andrew's last stay at Bogucharovo, when he introduced hospitals and schools and reduced the quit rent the peasants had to pay, had not softened their disposition, but had on the contrary strengthened in them the traits of character the old prince called boorishness. Various obscure rumors were always current among them. At one time, a rumor that they would all be enrolled as Cossacks, at another of a new religion to which they were all to be converted, then of some proclamation of the Tsar's and of an oath to the Tsar Paul in 1797, in connection with which it was rumored that freedom had been granted them, but the landowners had stopped it. Then of Peter Fedorovich's return to the throne in 7 years' time, when everything would be made free and so simple that there would be no restrictions. Rumors of the war with Bonaparte and his invasion were connected in their minds with the same sort of vague notions of Antichrist, the end of the world, and pure freedom. What a sentence.
In the vicinity of Bogocharovo were large villages belonging to the crown or to owners whose serfs paid quit rent and could work where they pleased. There were very few resident landlords in the neighborhood and also very few domestic or literate serfs. And in the lives of the peasantry of those parts, the mysterious undercurrents in the life of Russian people, the causes and meaning of which are so baffling to contemporaries, were more clearly and strongly noticeable than among others. One instance, which had occurred some 20 years before, was a movement among the peasants to emigrate to some unknown warm rivers. Hundreds of peasants, among them the Bogocharovo folk, suddenly began selling their cattle and moving in whole families toward the southeast. As birds migrate to somewhere beyond the sea, so these men with their wives and children streamed to the southeast, to parts where none of them had ever been. They set off in caravans, bought their freedom one by one or ran away, and drove or walked toward the warm rivers. Many of them were punished. Some sent to Siberia, many died of cold and hunger on the road. Many returned of their own accord, and the movement died down of itself just as it had sprung up, without apparent reason. But such undercurrents still existed among the people and gathered new forces ready to manifest themselves just as strangely, unexpectedly, and at the same time simply, naturally, and forcibly. Now, in 1812, to anyone living in close touch with these people, it was apparent that these undercurrents were acting strongly and nearing an eruption.
Alpatish, who had reached Bogucharovo shortly before the old prince's death, noticed an agitation among the peasants, and that, contrary to what was happening in the Bald Hills district, where over a radius of 40 miles, all the peasants were moving away and leaving their villages to be devastated by the Cossacks, the peasants in the steppe region around Bogucharovo were, it was rumored, in touch with the French, received leaflets from them that passed from hand to hand and did not migrate. He learned from domestic serfs loyal to him that the peasant, Karp, who possessed great influence in the village commune and had recently been away driving a government transport, had returned with news that the Cossacks were destroying deserted villages but that the French did not harm them. Alpatish also knew that on the previous day another peasant had been brought from the village of Vislukovo, which was occupied by the French, a proclamation by a French general that no harm would be done to the inhabitants, and if they remained, they would be paid for anything taken from them. As proof of this, the peasant had brought from Vislukovo 100 rubles in notes. He did not know that they were false, paid to him in advance for hay.
More important still, Alpatish learned that on the morning of the very day he gave the village elders orders to collect carts to move the princess's luggage from Bogucharovo, there had been a village meeting at which it had been decided not to move, but to wait. Yet there was no time to waste. On the 15th, the day of the old prince's death, the marshal had insisted on Princess Mary's leaving at once, as it was becoming dangerous. He had told her that after the 16th, he could not be responsible for what might happen. On the evening of the day the old prince died, the marshal went away, promising to return next day for the funeral. But this he was unable to do, for he received tidings that the French had unexpectedly advanced, and had barely time to remove his own family and valuables from his estate.
For some 30 years, Bogucharovo had been managed by the village elder, Dron, whom the old prince called by the diminutive Dronushka.
Dron was one of those physically and mentally vigorous peasants who grow big beards as soon as they are of age and go on unchanged till they are 60 or 70, without a gray hair or the loss of a tooth, as straight and strong at 60 as at 30.
Soon after the migration to the warm rivers in which he had taken part like the rest, Dron was made village elder and overseer of Bogucharovo and had since filled that post irreproachably for 23 years. The peasants feared him more than they did their master. The masters, both the old prince and the young, and the steward, respected him and jestingly called him the minister. During the whole time of his service, Dron had never been drunk or ill, never after sleepless nights or the hardest tasks had he shown the least fatigue, and though he could not read, he had never forgotten a single money account or the number of quarters of flour in any of the endless cartloads he sold for the prince, nor a single shock of the whole corn crop on any single acre of the Bogucharovo fields. How impressive. He's a cyborg.
Pretty much. Alpatish, arriving from the devastated Bald Hills estate, sent for his Dron on the day of the prince's funeral and told him to have 12 horses got ready for the princess's carriage and 18 carts for the things to be removed from Bogucharovo. Though the peasants paid quit rent, Alpatish thought no difficulty would be made about complying with this order, for there were 230 households at work in Bogucharovo and the peasants were well-to-do. But on hearing the order, Dron lowered his eyes and remained silent. Alpatish named certain peasants he knew from who told him to take the carts.
Dron replied that the horses of these peasants were away carting. Alpatish named others, but they too, according to Dron, had no horses available. Some horses were carting for the government, others were too weak, and others had died for want of fodder. It seemed that no horses could be had, even for the carriages, much less for the cart.
Alpatish looked intently at Dron and frowned. Just as Dron was a model village elder, so Alpatish had not managed the prince's estate for 20 years in vain. He was a model steward, possessing in the highest degree the faculty of divining the needs and instincts of those he dealt with. Having glanced at Dron, He at once understood that his answers did not express his personal views, but the general mood of the Bogocharovo commune, by which the elder had already been carried away. But he also knew that John, who had acquired property and was hated by the commune, must be hesitating between the two camps, the masters and the serfs. He noticed this hesitation in John's look, and therefore frowned and moved closer up to him.
Now just listen, Dronushka, said he. Don't talk nonsense to me. His Excellency Prince Andrew himself gave me orders to move all the people away and not leave them with the enemy, and there is an order from the Tsar about it too. Anyone who stays is a traitor to the Tsar. Do you hear?
I hear, John answered without lifting his eyes.
Alpatych was not satisfied with this reply.
Hey, John, it will turn out badly, he said, shaking his head.
The power is in your hands, John rejoined sadly.
Hey, John, drop it, Alpatych repeated, withdrawing his hand from his bosom and solemnly pointing to the floor at John's feet. I can see through you and 3 yards into the ground under you, he continued, gazing at the floor in front of John.
John was disconcerted, glancing furtively at Alpatych and again lowered his eyes.
Drop this nonsense and tell the people to get ready to leave their homes and go to Moscow and to get carts ready for tomorrow morning for the princess's things. And don't go to any meeting yourself, do you hear?
John suddenly fell on his knees.
Yakov Alpatych, discharge me. Take the keys from me and discharge me for Christ's sake.
Stop that, cried Alpatych sternly. I see through you and 3 yards under you, he repeated, knowing that his skill in beekeeping, his knowledge of the right time to sow the oats, and the fact that he had been able to retain the old prince's favor for 20 years had long since gained him the reputation of being a wizard, and that the power of seeing 3 yards under a man is considered an attribute of wizards.
What?
Crazy.
John got up and was about to say something, but Alpatych interrupted him.
What is it you have got into your heads, eh? What are you thinking of, eh?
What am I to do with the people, said John. They're quite beside themselves. I have already told them.
Told them, I dare say, said Alpatych. Are they drinking? Wait, are they drinking? He asked abruptly.
Are they drinking? Yeah. Told,
Are they drinking?
Yeah. Quite beside themselves, Yakov Alpatych. They fetched another barrel.
See, Yakov. Well then, listen. I'll go to the police officer and tell them so, and that they must stop this, and the carts must be got ready.
I understand.
What? Alpatych did not insist further. He had managed people for a long time, and knew that the chief way to make them obey is to show no suspicion that they can possibly disobey. Having wrung a submissive "I understand" from Drone, Alpatych contented himself with that, though he not only doubted but felt almost certain that without the help of troops the carts would not be forthcoming.
And so it was, for when evening came, no carts had been provided. In the village, outside the drink shop, another meeting was being held, which decided that the horses should be driven out into the woods, and the carts should not be provided. Without saying anything of this to the princess, Alpatych had his own belongings taken out of the carts which had arrived from Bald Hills, and had those horses got ready for the princess's carriages. Meanwhile, he went himself to the police authorities.
I don't know what this police business and the drinking is suddenly about.
I don't know, he's like, oh, have they been drinking? Is that all that's going on? That they're drunk, so they're deciding these things?
Come to.
Must be quite devastating to see your home picked apart.
Horrible. Horrible.
Well,
Thankfully, no one's picking apart.
yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night.